For the title of today's video, I have used the words from the title of a book, which is also a TED Talk, called How to Avoid Death by PowerPoint by David Phillips, because I love the way it sounds. It happens quite a lot that people get bored, maybe confused, or even sleepy when listening to a presentation. Some might find a presentation to be a waste of their time. Some might just get bored when attending presentations in general. Some might have a habit of never asking questions to the presenter and never interact. There are a variety of reasons why people get bored to death during a presentation. Reason number one, the presentation, or most of it, is just not relevant to them. Sometimes some people who are invited to a presentation are touched by the topic only marginally. While they might listening to the small part of the presentation that interests them, they might not even try to listen to the remaining part. Another option is you, the presenter, give an example to prove a point, but you go on talking about it because you might be passionate about it, but the audience starts detaching from what you're saying because they don't feel the same way, they don't feel the same passion as you for your topic of choice, they don't understand you, and as a result, they stop listening. Reason number two, lack of interaction. The level of interaction during a presentation depends a lot on what kind of a presentation it is, if it is supposed to only inform or to open a discussion, if the presentation is a common practice, for example, if such presentations take place regularly inside the company or the team. But it also depends a lot on the people that organize and participate in the presentation. For instance, presentations that are more serious in nature, for example, also recorded, and are limited in time, are close to the active participation of the audience. But in a more relaxed context, people from the audience could ask questions if they feel like it. Sometimes questions are saved to the end of the presentation. In a broader sense of the word, the audience might feel a lack of interaction from your side if you, for example, don't look at your audience but only at the slides. If you speed up through the presentation without noticing the reaction in your audience, or if you skip through something even though your audience may be confused and may have not understood what you said. You should be aware of what is going on with your audience all throughout your presentation. And this is one of the 5 tips that I mentioned in this video here. Do check it out if you need to work on improving your audience awareness. Reason number 3 is lack of structure. I talked in another video, and you can find it here, about how important it is to structure your presentation and your presentation slides as part of your preparation. But of course, the presentation is structured so that the audience understands the content presented. If there is no structure to your presentation, if you're all over the place, talking about one thing at one point, then about another, and then you go back to the first one, your audience will lose interest, focus, and disconnect from you and your presentation. At the same time, your presentation slides should not only have a clear and consistent structure, but they should include only a few text and mostly visuals. It's something that David Phillips, in fact, says: you are the presentation, not your slides. Your slides are only there to help you. And reason number 4, difference in presenting styles. Then there is such a thing as a difference in presenting styles. For example, some people like to have a serious presentation, so they might not like presentations that include some humor. If someone did not like your presentation, does not automatically mean that your presentation was bad. It could just be that they have or prefer another style. Now, to avoid that your audience gets bored to death, there are 3 things that you should do. First, structure your presentation and your presentation slides. Again, to learn more about how to structure a presentation, check out the video I mentioned. I'll link it here again. I would, however, like to emphasize the importance that a clear structure has in a presentation. You can take as an example personal stories that we share with people. Have you ever noticed the difference between one story that is told with a clear structure and one that doesn't have one? A story with a clear structure is a story that is made of an introduction or opening, then something happening, and then the result or the goal of the story is revealed. Now, a story without a structure might have the same 3 parts, but they're intertwined and not focused. I have told stories that I would start telling one and then notice too late into the story that I had left an important piece of information out. Or I would start saying one thing and then ramble on with details that were completely irrelevant to the story at hand. The same thing can happen with a presentation. We could forget information that is important to the subject or introduce it too late. We could include information or examples that are not relevant to the subject. We could move from one part of the presentation or one subject to another, leaving a gap in between. All of these become very obvious to the audience, but it can be obvious to us too. When we're preparing the presentation or practicing it, there sometimes is something that doesn't click, and we know it, but we can't put our finger on what it is. So be very intentional when it comes to structuring your presentation. Second, get clear on the objective of your presentation. Before you even start structuring, writing, or preparing your slides, you should be very clear on what the objective of your presentation is. There are 4 main purposes in the workplace that presentations are used for: to inform, to instruct, to persuade, and to aid in decision making. Informative presentations are used to inform the audience about the results of a recent study, the advancement on a specific project, or any other subject matter. Instructional presentations either give directions to the audience or are used to train them. Persuasive presentations are mainly used in sales, and then decision-making presentations are more like an interactive meeting, as the presenter presents the decision that needs to be made and might lay out the options or ideas, then together with the audience discuss about and come to a decision. If you don't know what you plan to achieve with your presentation, then you won't know what the best way to give your presentation is. If, for example, you want to do a presentation of a study that you've been conducting and your sole purpose is to inform your audience, then if you, for example, finish your presentation laying out a bunch of questions, then your audience might feel like they need to give their input. It's very important that you yourself have the goal of your presentation very clear. Only then you can prepare it in such a way that it becomes clear to your audience too what you wanted to tell them through your presentation. On the other hand, by getting very clear on the goal of your presentation, you get to decide also on a lot of other things, like the level of interaction with your audience, the type of information that you will share, or the level of detail, and the people that will be part of your audience. And the third thing that you can do, change your thoughts about your presentations. Our thoughts about some particular activity or object, or anything really, define the way that we feel about it. The same is valid for presentations. If we tell ourselves that we are terrorized by the idea of giving a presentation, then that is ultimately the way we will feel. When we feel fear and anxiety about giving a presentation, we feel our heart beating faster, we breathe quickly and more shallow breaths, we start perspiring more. One of the hormones that our body produces when we're fearful is adrenaline. But guess when we feel the same way and the same hormone is produced in our body? When we feel excitement. So basically, someone who is afraid about public speaking and someone who is excited about it are actually feeling the same thing. The physical reactions are the same, but one names it fear and the other names it excitement. If you are afraid of giving presentations, change your thoughts and words that you use. Replace "I am so afraid to give this presentation" to "I am so excited." What this does is it starts changing your association to presentation and public speaking. By being excited instead of afraid, you tend to be more open to giving more presentations, to taking advantage of your strong skills, and to improve your weaker ones. In conclusion, if you don't want your audience to die of boredom during your presentation, then first, structure your presentation. Second, get clear on the goal of your presentation. And third, change your fear to excitement. And this brings me to the end of this week's video, and I will see you in the next one.